If we took the time to talk to most people without knowing what their political preferences were or religious preferences, other things like that, just ask them, what does happiness look like to you in life? Took the time to talk to them about that, we would find that most of us say, I want to make a difference for people. I want to contribute to the world and do good things. I want my family to be happy. I want, my kids or my significant other, whoever it is, and I want peace. If we took the time to do that, most people, regardless of the other things, that's what they want. We want peace in this world. We want joy. We want happiness. We want hope.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sparks Gratitude Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Sparks, and today we have a treat, a repeat guest, Captain Kindman himself, Randy McNeely.
Hey, two Randys in the house.
I know.
How lucky these guys get.
I know. This is exciting. This is a fortuitous event. Anybody that watches or listens to the podcast recognizes Randy for multiple reasons. Number one, he's been on the podcast before. And number two, several of the guests on the podcast have shouted you out.
And they have. And I've been grateful for that. I was like, wow, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, but you are here from exotic Iowa visiting Utah for a few days.
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, and so we're just making lemonade and
exactly
getting together. So, and you've got the cape on.
I do.
The Captain Kindman.
Kindman shirt. Here's the cape.
So maybe you can fill us in from the last time we talked. You have just totally embraced and embodied this persona of Captain Kindman. Tell me about it. Hey there, everyone. Did you know that beyond hosting the Sparks of Gratitude podcast, I am also an estate planning attorney, and I love gratitude, and my law firm is proud to sponsor this video. Since 2010, in my law practice, I have designed and delivered customized peace of mind with sophisticated estate planning made easy. So whether you need foundational estate planning, including revocable trusts, wills, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, which is what most people need, or you might need advanced strategies such as irrevocable trust for asset protection or advanced estate tax planning, I am here to guide you every step of the way. Because at the end of the day, your peace of mind is my peace of mind. You can visit randallsparks.com and I can get started helping you plan for the future today. Now back to our podcast.
I have, and there's a reason for that. It's interesting because I'm just going to go back just a little bit. I was in Palermo last year. Good grief, it seems like forever ago. I was in Palermo last year. I walked out on stage for the first time in my life ever doing this. I walked out on stage with a kind of superhero t-shirt on and this big red cape. And, at first I was terrified. It's like, people are going to think this is cheesy. It's kind of weird. And they probably still do. But I walked out on that stage and I stood there in that cape and in that kind of superhero shirt because I wanted to make a point. This world needs kind of superheroes. Now, you don't have to put a cape on or a Captain Kindman shirt on. The reason I did that is because people will remember it. They'll remember it. It's an attention grabber. Not that I'm trying to grab attention, but I do want to call attention to the need for kindness. And since then, goodness, a lot of things have happened. I have embraced it. I've launched a website, captainkindman.com. I'm working on several opportunities to speak to schools, to organizations, to professors, to students, whoever I can speak to about embracing what I call courageous kindness. And we just filmed, I also have a film company called the Kindness Factor International. And we just completed a feature-length film called For Such a Time as This, which is an amazing story of the founding of kindness worldwide, the story behind that inspired it, as well as a collection of transformational stories of people's lives who have been changed or saved by love delivered through kindness.
Yeah. So you just have a little bit going on.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably have, a full-time job on top of that. I mean, why not?
Well, this is my full-time job. So.
Full-time.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking engagements, that's one of the reasons you're here right now. Is part of the reason that you're here.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking on Thursday to a leadership class at BYU, an entrepreneurship class.
Awesome.
So
courageous kindness. So talk to me a little bit about kindness.
Okay.
And why this world needs courageous kindness. What is courageous kindness? How do we embody that? How do we become that? You need people who embody courageous kindness.
We do. I'm going to give you two definitions of kindness. First, kindness, and then courageous kindness, because I make a little bit of differentiation. Kindness itself, I define it as love in action, which embraces every behavior by which we show value and appreciation for ourselves and others, as well as the planet. We take care of, our surroundings so that we can be healthy and strong, our planet can be healthy and strong. And then courageous kindness takes it up a notch. We live in a time of dramatic division and polarization. And if there was ever a time when we needed to be able to build bridges of understanding and grow love, it's now. And courageous kindness is this: it's extending love toward everyone through kindness, regardless of the situation. And it's courageous kindness because it takes courage to do it. It's not easy. It's not easy to have conversations with people if you maybe disagree with them or they disagree with you. It's very challenging. But we can't, we all know what happened here in Utah a few weeks ago, a couple months ago. We know about Charlie Kirk and about the assassination. We can't continue down the road to where if I disagree with you and you don't agree with me, well, let's just try to snuff each other out. It's a zero-sum game. And so, I after that whole experience, I don't live in Utah, I live in Iowa, but that experience got to me. And that's when I created what I call the courageous kindness shift framework. Would you like me to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the courageous kindness shift. We need to see each other differently. We need to stop and think, I need to see Randy Sparks as a human being, as a valuable human being who deserves to be valued and appreciated. And I need to think about him that way, think differently. I need to think about the fact that if we took the time to talk to most people without knowing what their political preferences were or religious preferences, other things like that, just ask them, what does happiness look like to you in life? Took the time to talk to them about that, we would find that most of us say, well, I want to make a difference for people. I want to contribute to the world and do good things. I want my family to be happy. I want, my kids or my significant other, whoever it is. I just, I want peace. If we took the time to do that, most people, regardless of the other things, that's what they want. We want peace in this world. We want joy. We want happiness. We want hope. And so we have to think about things differently and remember that to humanize people again, because there's far too much vitriol. There's far too much anti-social media. It's not social media. It's anti-social media, where people are constantly going at each other, slinging barbs and stuff like that. There's way too much of that. We need to be thinking about the fact that we're all human beings who deserve to be valued and appreciated. And along with that, see, think, feel. You got to feel differently. If the old statement, you become what you think about, become what you focus on. If I'm focusing on other people looking for the good, how's that going to make me feel about them? I'm not going to see them as somebody that's just an object to be used and thrown away when they're not useful to me anymore. They're no longer a means to my ends. I'm going to see people and feel like, I need to do something. I can be doing something to lift, to build, to strengthen, to help, to bring hope. And when the next step in that framework, see, think, feel, then listen. Listen differently. Listen with the intent to understand. Don't be sitting there listening with the intent to, find some way to slam the other person or mock what they're saying or make fun of what their beliefs are. Sit there with the intent to listen. I'd like to know who Randy Sparks is. I'd like to know what makes him tick and why. Why does he feel the way he does? Why does he do the things he does? What motivates him? And if we take the time to listen, to understand, we're thinking, we're seeing, we're thinking, we're feeling differently, we're taking the time to listen, to understand, we're going to respond differently. Instead of coming with fists ready to whack somebody and pounce, we're going to come with open hands, open arms. And that's a framework, that can transform the way that we talk with each other, the way that we interact with each other. Then I've got two other, I've got what I call the ICA method, the identify, clarify, and amplify method, which means identify those behaviors by which I can show value and appreciation, by which I can listen better and help better. and then clarify the actions that I'm going to take to put those behaviors into practice. Take some time and think, what actions, what things can I do to put those behaviors that I've identified into practice? And then amplify it. And I invite people to amplify it using, there's a lot of ways you could, but there's a simple formula you can use to amplify it. And I talked about it previously on our previous interview, the Kindness Givers formula. I wrote a book about it, and it's simple. Every day, get up and focus your mindset and your heart set on giving kindness to other people. Think, I'm going to be kind. I'm going to feel good about other people and look for ways to serve them. And then think of your day, where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, who you're going to be with, and think of and plan simple ways that you can give kindness in those situations. And there are potential opportunities because, you know as well as I do that nothing ever goes exactly as planned, right? Never exactly works out the way it's planned. But so potential opportunities to be kind. So you've got those in your head, and now you're going to go out. You're going to put your kindness antennas up, and you're going to look for and act on opportunities to be kind. Not only the ones that you plan, but also all the random opportunities to be kind that present themselves every day, and that we can readily see if we're intentionally looking for them. I say random opportunities to be kind. I don't believe in random acts of kindness. There is no act of kindness that's random. It's never random. We always choose. We make a choice to be kind. There's nobody sitting there saying, you got to do this. We choose to do it. So, but there's lots of random opportunities to be kind that show up. And then the next step, invite and encourage other people to do the same thing. And a lot of times, if people observe what you're doing and they see the impact it has both on you and on the people that you're serving, people observe what you're doing. A lot of times that inspires them to go out and do kindness. But invite and encourage other people to do the same thing. They see what you're doing. They're going to want to do the same thing. Encourage it. How do we create ripples? We encourage people to go out and be kind. We create that pay it forward feeling. And the final step is take time to reflect and record. And the final step is take time at the end of the day, take just a few minutes and reflect on your day. Reflect on any experiences that you had with kindness and how they impacted you, or how it impacted you seeing how what you did impacted somebody else. Take a few minutes to record that. Here's a couple of things that does. When we record it, it ingrains it more in our heart and in our minds. And then it also opens up the opportunity for those rainy days which we all have. It might not be raining outside, but it's raining in here. We have those days when we feel a little bit down or discouraged. Well, you can go back and pull out that kindness journal, that place where you recorded those things, and reread those events. And amazingly, science has proven that just rereading about kindness experiences can actually set off what I call the D.O.S.E, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins in our bodies. And that's a Jacqueline Way statement. Hi, Jacqueline. Hope you're watching this. That's a Jacqueline Way statement, but it can produce the D.O.S.E. I know that was a long answer, a long description, but I feel like that framework, the shift, the method, and the formula. Shift, method, formula. Kindness, courageous kindness shift, the ICA method, and the Kindness Givers formula. Those can work. People can use those together professionally, personally, in communities, however, to start transforming the way that we communicate with each other and get back to being able to communicate and to disagree better. Because the conflict is inevitable. People have different experiences, different insights, different things going on, but contention is a choice. And hopefully that what I just shared can help us start thinking about ways that we can reduce contention and do things better.
Well, I really hope that it can. And I wanted to ask you about courageous kindness specifically, because what is courage? Where does courage manifest itself in our life today? This bravery and courage in the way we choose to behave. I've had a few guests on the podcast who talk specifically about courage and what courage means, and have written books about courage. Jill Schulman wrote a book called The Bravery Effect, and what is bravery? What is courage? And it's not something that someone necessarily has and they face down, and fear cowers in front of them, right, as they walk in the room. It's courage manifests itself because of fear, right? It's how we respond to
Yeah,
that challenging moment, right? That's when
exactly.
courage comes,
Yes.
right? And so those two kind of can't exist without the other.
Yeah.
It's the challenging moments give us an opportunity to choose courage,
Yeah.
right? And you've described this as that I get to choose kindness, right?
Yeah.
And I think that those small daily choices flex the muscle to then help me become more naturally that way. And then I embody a habitual kindness.
Yeah. Well, you made a good point there. Practice.
Mm.
You know, if I want to grow stronger, I've obviously practiced way too much with my jaws because I've gotten stronger here. But if I want to grow stronger physically, what do I need to do? I need to practice lifting weights. I need to do whatever it's going to do to tear my muscles so that they'll rebuild themselves and come back stronger. And if I want to get better at the piano, I have to practice. I can't just sit there and look at the keys and run my fingers over them and hope that I'm going to get better. I have to practice. The same thing with your kindness muscle. Courageous kindness takes practice. It's not an easy thing. And we're all going to be faced with different choices. And sometimes, it's interesting. It doesn't have to come from a conflict with somebody else. I'm going to be totally open and candid. I struggle with weight because I like to eat. I'm a human being and I enjoy my food. It's okay to enjoy food. It's just the matter of I need to do better about my portion size, what I choose to eat, and how often and stuff like that. And I know that I'm trying to find the courage to have the discipline to do what I need to do to be able to lose the weight I need to lose. And it's always been something that I've struggled with, but having the discipline to do that is, for me, is courageous kindness to myself. And obviously I am not there yet, but I'm working towards it. And we can, it's also, I think it's courageous kindness when we step back and say no sometimes. And you remember, I think it's Essentialism by Greg Keon
Greg
or
McKeown.
Greg McKeown, is and I can't remember what the little tagline is. It's basically the ability to say no when, there's times when, especially being the kind person that I am, I want sometimes to say yes to everybody that asks me to do stuff, but I've had to learn I can't do that. I have to have the courage to say no.
Yeah, yeah. The book is about the eliminating the trivial many things to be
Yes.
able to say yes to the essential few.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you're true. You're correct that there's always going to be some kind of element of fear that triggers the need for courageous kindness to a degree. But I think there's also those times. Well, no, it's true. Even when we make our own courageous kindness, I fear. I want to, but I gotta make sure I say this the right way because it's better to act on faith in faith than out of fear. So yes, I have fear that my weight is going to take me out of the picture a lot sooner than it should. But I also need to have faith that if I'm courageous enough and that I can get to the point where I can be courageous enough to do what I need to do, to discipline myself to do what I need to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that just like this conversation about fear, and I might push back on you on some of this.
Okay, push back.
There's a few words that you're using. I need to be this, and I should be this. You got to eliminate those words from your vocabulary.
I do. I'll
Right?
agree with you on
Because
that.
because what are you telling yourself is that you should be something that you're not. Right? Why? Why are you telling yourself that you should be something that you are not? Right? Because then I am not acceptable as I am. Right? There's a quote by a modern philosopher named Carl Rogers who says, "The curious paradox in life is when I accept myself as I am, then I change." Right? And so if I can accept and love myself exactly how I am, and so this is where I want to dig a little deeper into the conversation about kindness, is because sometimes the courage of kindness is how kind who is sometimes the most unkind to me, who speaks to me in the most vicious and demeaning ways that I would never speak to somebody else that way.
We say it to ourselves.
Myself.
That's our
So the way that
the inner critic is up there having a party.
Exactly. Well, and I would say that maybe it's not me. It's the inner critic. It's the roommate. There's that inner voice that's kind of manifesting my own insecurities and so on.
Yeah.
And so that I would never treat somebody else the way that I sometimes speak to myself.
Oh, exactly.
Right. And so let's talk about the kindness. Like if I'm able to be kind to you, wait a minute. Jordan Peterson talks about, one of his rules is to treat yourself like someone you were caring for.
Yeah. Well, we're both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm not trying to bring religion into this, really, but it's a big motivator for what I do, why I do what I do. I believe in Jesus Christ and I act the way I do because I love him and want to be like him. But we learned when we were kids a little song called I want to be kind to everyone, for that is right you see. So I say to myself, remember this. What's the last line? Kindness begins with me. I've heard that all my life. Now, I grew up in a home where it was challenging. My father was always criticizing. Not to make excuses, but when you grow up in that environment, when you're constantly being criticized and constantly in a situation where you feel like I can never do anything right, you're walking on eggshells all the time. And so I learned to be defensive and also, but in my head, I mean, I had the strongest inner critic in the world because that's what I learned. I am less than. This is this. And to this day, I'll be totally honest. I still struggle at times with the inner critic. A lot of the time, it's great for me to talk to others about being kind, but the person you nailed it. The person I have the hardest time being kind to is me. And heck, and I'm getting better though. I feel like I'm a pretty good guy. I'm a nice guy, and
well, I think you're a very good guy. And so this is where I want to dig a little bit is, so I have a son who, we've talked about him before, and right now he's serving a mission for our church. He's in the Solomon Islands, way out near Papua New Guinea. He's going to be there for 2 years. And I talked to him the other day and asked him what it's like sharing the spiritual message and the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ with people. And most of the people that listen to his message are illiterate and poor and don't have work. And they're in a situation that we don't face here, that he's never seen. And I ask him questions about, well, what do these people need? And what kind of questions do they ask you? And what I'm learning is that I'm looking at what his experience is like through a paradigm of the life that I'm living.
Yeah.
Not the life that they're living.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you think of somebody who needs basic necessities down to daily food and work and money, to not even being literate to be able to read.
Yeah.
And they're adults. And so I say, well, I'm coming around to something, I promise. But I think before somebody can care about anything outside of that, they need to have the basics satisfied.
Yeah.
Right. And so I say, well, what I see in some of those people is that they might be financially in poverty, but spiritually they're wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. And they can still manifest joy and kindness.
Yeah.
Right. And so it costs nothing but choice to be kind.
Yeah.
I notice that sometimes I feel like I'm in despair, or I feel down, or I'm in some type of depression, or I feel low value. In those moments where I feel like I just want somebody to tell me that I'm worth it.
I need somebody to say, you're okay.
And so I want, what I share with people is that the fastest way to get out of that mindset is to choose gratitude.
Yeah.
To give kindness.
Yeah.
And that is an immediate change of frequency, right? And if I want to change, what if I chose to see the good? What if I chose to see the gratitude? express that, feel that, because gratitude isn't about having a lot, but gratitude is about noticing what is.
Yeah.
The highest, my friend Devin Rapley shared with me a definition of the highest form of gratitude is acceptance of what is.
Yeah. And being grateful for what you have.
Right.
Not constantly looking for something out there, being able to see and realize, I have a lot. I have, I may not have all the stuff that somebody else has, but being grateful for what I do have
Right.
makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's the fastest way to shift my mind away from entitlement and resentment, because every single one of those is focused on what's outside of me instead of what already exists.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I can choose that, then I have a grateful heart, a grateful spirit.
Yeah.
Then it's so much easier for me to step outside of myself and give kindness.
Yeah.
And that just elevates me further. Right?
It's true. It's true. I know that when something I've really tried hard to do better at, and I do have been doing much better at, is really loving me and seeing myself. I want to be skinnier, but like you said, I need to accept myself. I'm not there right now, and I can still love myself even as I am right now. And that makes sense. Is it easy? It takes courage to try to do that. It's not easy for me. Because I'm sure that, there's not even anybody out there who can't relate to this. We all struggle with our own situation, things that we think we ought to be or need to be or should be. And that puts up barriers to accepting ourselves as we are. And, this has been a good conversation for me because it's got me again thinking about that. I need to be thinking about that path. And, it reminded me of a story. I just participated in what's called the Be Yourself crew with Cloud Silver, who just wrote this amazing book called Be Yourself at Work. And it's really a fantastic book. I would highly recommend it to anybody it's great for work. It was written for Be Yourself at Work, but it's got great life lessons in it. And one of the stories in there she tells, and it goes right along with what you were just saying. She was 19. She was in a survival course, a 93-day survival course. And one day they were climbing this mountain, and I can't remember where it was. I think somewhere in Colorado or somewhere. But anyway, they were climbing up this mountain. It's raining cats and dogs. I mean, it's pouring rain. And she says, I was in this raincoat. I was freezing, and I was crying, and I was feeling sorry for myself. And the counselor saw her and came back and said, so what's going on in your head right now? And she explained, I'm cold, I'm hungry, and this sucks, It's just, and her counselor just said to her, says, well, that's one song you can have in your head, but you need to get a different one. You need to get a new song in your head. And she said, that really was the first time it hit me that I could choose to think, change my perspective and look at the experience differently and find ways to be able to cope with it and actually be grateful, even though it was hard. Find ways to be grateful in that experience.
Yeah, Wayne Dyer says when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's a great point, and that's true. And it changed the way you look at things and the way you look at people. It comes back to the courageous kind of shift when we change the way we look at people. If I'm sitting here and I'm seeing Randy Sparks as an object, you're just a means to an end. This podcast just a means to, hey, I'm out here. I can get famous on Randy Sparks. If I saw that as a means, just a means for that, our conversation, our relationship would not be credible over time, because it would be just feel like, okay, Randy's just using me, or I'm just using Randy. Either way. But if I'm here, I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a message that needs to be shared, and for the opportunity to be in the presence of a man that I have a lot of respect for because of the way that you promote gratitude, because of the kindness that you extend, and even as we've been talking here, you've been extending kindness toward me, reminding me of specific things that I can be doing better. And I'm happy to take that because, I'm not perfect and I can use all the help I can get. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, and it's making a difference for me.
Well, it makes a difference for me too. Thank you. Okay, so I want to ask you, now that you're getting around and you're part of making films and you're part of all these
Yeah.
projects and this whole Captain Kindman persona and initiative and speaking
Yeah.
engagements and so on. So, you know, a lot of people are out there promoting kindness, and I think,
Yep.
the more we can have, the better,
Yeah.
right? So what are some of the difficult things that you face, or what's some of the pushback of saying, "Oh, well, that sounds great and all, Captain Kindman, Randy McNeely,
Yeah.
but it's all just flowery, whatever. That's not going to make a difference." Like what challenges are you facing along the way? I mean,
It's interesting. At this point, I haven't gotten a lot of pushback, but because I've been in my own echo chamber
mhm.
for a little bit, with talking with people that feel the same way or striving to promote kindness and things like that. But I imagine that it's going to be, when I'm out more publicly speaking and out in front of people who have contrary views and stuff like that, there is going to be pushback. But I have to be prepared for that and be willing to say, okay, I mean, that's what I'm pushed for. I want to be able to have conversations in kindness with people who disagree with me, that I disagree with. But if I show how looking at them with kindness and working them with them through kindness can build bridges of understanding. Will it be easy? No. But it's something that I'll have to work at, and it'll be worth it when the time comes. So it's hard to answer that question because I haven't gotten a lot of pushback yet.
Okay, well, I'm just digging, like, what are the hard questions going to be to face, and maybe that's just examining in yourself or myself right now, is to say, well, yeah, I know that being kind or being grateful is a good thing, duh, but I got stuff to do. I got, I'm busy, or when I have time, I'll do that.
Okay.
Where,
When are you going to have time to be happy?
right? I'm
Hon-
trying to
Honestly,
play, so
you can ask. Yeah,
so
you're
listen
playing the
to it.
devil's
Yeah.
advocate here. Well, so to that, if someone says, "I don't have time to be kind," I say, "Okay, so do you have time to be happy? When do you have time to be happy? I don't need all this fluff." Well, let me ask you, when's the last time you just took a minute or two and actually thought, I can do something kind either for myself or for me, I mean, for someone else, and just see what the results are. We talk all the time. We hear, study X said this or study Y said this. I like studies. I'm grateful for scientific proof, but the greatest thing you can do to find out if kindness works is to become a living experiment.
Yeah.
Go out and give kindness away, and don't do it expecting anything in return. Don't do it with the desire to self-aggrandize or have people see you being kind and think you're great and stuff like. Just go out and do it because you can, because somebody is in need.
Yeah, I would say don't talk about it, be about it.
Exactly. Okay, so now you just nailed something else. Kindness only has a true impact once it moves past the point of being a talking point. We can talk about kindness till the cows come home, but the impact doesn't come until you're acting, and it's action that makes a difference. Both of us had the opportunity to attend the Kindness Summit here in Salt Lake, and it was great. A lot of fantastic speakers and things like that, and some great motivation and things coming out of it. But I honestly, I came away feeling uplifted, but then thinking, wouldn't it be awesome if we had taken a couple of hours away from the conference and gone somewhere and done a little service project and left some impact? We've talked about kindness. Now let's put it into action.
Yeah, and I think, well, and the organization that puts on the Kindness Summit is called One Kind Act a
A
Day,
day. Yeah.
right? And they focus all their time on highlighting that, encouraging that, initiatives to promote that. And so,
Yeah.
and then it's bringing these people together to say, let's celebrate that this is happening, right?
Yeah.
And now, all right, everybody, ready,
Go out and
break,
do it.
and
Yeah.
go be about it now. And
I'm just like, I sit and think, we can be even more powerful if when we have this conference, we come and talk about it, but we have something where we're creating an experience
mhm.
with kindness, because that's when it's in the experience that the heart prints, the fingerprints of love are left on hearts.
Well, and so how do we break this down? So I mean, this is an invitation I have, and I'm curious about the invitations that you give to people, because
Yeah.
what are we doing right now? We're talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can be about it and be kind to each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, we do that all the time whenever we talk. But guess what? This is a podcast, and in a podcast, we talk about it.
Yeah.
So, guys, we're talking.
So how do I break down what I just said? Yeah.
But how can we be about it sitting here? Somebody's listening to this podcast, and that listener might, if anybody, maybe it's just my mom. But whoever's listening to that podcast, just pause for a second and just think and reflect on when was the last kind act that you experienced or gave.
Yeah.
Right. Now pause. Take a minute to think about that. And to some of you, this might have been moments ago.
Yeah.
For others, you might have to pause for a lot longer and really think. And you know what? The longer it takes, the better. Take all the time that you need to think of when was the last kind act that you experienced or that you gave. Either one is fine. But think about it. Reflect on that. Imagine it. See it. Feel what that felt like. Allow yourself to feel that again. Right now, in this moment, you can change the way you feel simply by reflecting on an act of kindness, right? And this, you could go back and remember an act of kindness from when you were a child. Just think about it. Go back and start to remember and go revisit those moments in your life. And you can elevate your frequency, your spirit, your feeling. All of that is this reflect, right, that you talk about. Reflect on those acts of kindness.
Yeah.
But give yourself the gift of noticing those things, remembering those things, bringing those feelings back into you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. Even as we talk about it, it made my mind start going back through life-changing experiences I've had with kindness. I've mentioned before, I'm a survivor of multiple forms of childhood abuse. And kindness, I'll tell anybody, I know kindness saves lives because of the love it delivers. Love saves lives. It saved mine. As a teenager, I was in a situation where I thought I was going to commit suicide. I really wanted, I was in pain. Mental, emotional, physical, seriously physical pain. Not physical as in damage had been done to me, but the stress, the anxiety so I was in that situation. And the irony was, I knew the gospel was true. I was a member of the church. I knew that God was there. I knew that Jesus Christ was there. But I was in so much pain. I just thought, I want to be done. But the Lord, I firmly believe God had other ideas, because he put people in my life that stepped up and stepped into the shoes of kindness heroes. And my friends, he raised up friends for me that put their arms around me and that loved me, and their parents. They invited me into their homes, and I got to see what it was like to be in a home where the parents actually loved each other, really loved each other, and they treated the kids with kindness. And were they perfect? No, I mean, they're like any other family, but there was a feeling of love and caring and kindness in those homes. So one thing that makes this podcast, other interviews, and everything we know, when we listen to speakers, more memorable is stories. I remember when my father, it was at that time, my father was being prosecuted for heinous crimes that he committed, and, related to sexual abuse. I'm sorry if that triggers anybody. It was a heinous crime. I was 14. I had a paper route. You imagine looking down at the paper and seeing a headline about your dad. Everybody in the town knew about it. And it was embarrassing. And I was worried about what people were thinking of me. But I remember shortly after that happened, I went to play, I used to play in a church basketball league, and I went to play a basketball game. And my friend Gary Orchard, his mom, Janet, came up to me afterwards, gave me a big hug. Just know that we love you, Randy. And we love your family. We're praying for you and we're here for you. That experience just came back into my head as we were just talking. And there's a lot more. I could share a whole bunch of other stories. But that's what makes things powerful. When you're having a conversation like this, we can't get out and act, but we can share stories of other people's actions and how they impacted us. And that's just one way my life has been impacted. And that's one of the reasons I do what I do. I bet you've got some stories, Randy.
I've got stories all day long, but what I want to hear is for you to highlight some of those, because all of these instances of kindness in your life have pushed you to the point to say, well, not only do I want to be kind, but I want to go share this message all over the world. I mean, this is what you do full time.
Yeah.
So who are some other people that you admire who have impacted you, and why? Tell me about them.
Oh my goodness. I have to go back. I'm going to put a plug in for my sweet mother. One of my, another memory that I had when you were just talking about that came from when I was a little boy. I don't remember what had happened. I was about 3 or 4 years old. I can still remember this. I'm 56 now and I'm 3 or 4 years old. So it's been over 50 years ago that this happened. We had this old green rocking chair, stuffed, big, leather, like, fake leather rocking chair. And I had done something that had upset me, or something had happened that upset me. I was crying, really frustrated and angry. And my sweet mother, on more than one occasion, would take me to that chair. If I was upset, we'd go sit in the green rocking chair, and she started rocking me. And she had a beautiful soprano voice. And she would just sit there and sing little songs to make me feel better and to remind me that God knew me and he loved me. We'd sing primary songs, I'm a child of God. Or she'd sing to me, lullabies. Or, one song that is my favorite to this day is, I Know Heavenly Father Loves Me, and starts out, whenever I hear the song of a bird, or look at the blue, blue sky, whenever I feel the rain on my face, or the wind as it rushes by, whenever I touch a velvet rose or walk by a lilac tree, I'm glad that I live in this beautiful world Heavenly Father created for me. I can still hear her voice singing that. And then I can hear her. I think back of when I was a little boy and we used to go on long walks. My mom and I and some of my siblings. Mostly I remember just my mom and I, but we'd go on walks and she would point out all the flowers and tell me, those are pansies and those are daisies and those are lilies and those are petunias or whatever they were, and point them all out to me. But then whenever we came to a rose bush, and there were a lot of rose bushes in our neighborhood, we always stopped, every single one, stopped and smelled the roses. Roses are my favorite flower on the planet to this day, because she taught me a great lesson. She taught me to stop and smell the roses in life, to focus on the things that matter most, and try to always give other people the opportunity to smell the roses by the things that you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Randy. So do you notice what's happening? Just so you know, what I see here in this experience, this room feels different since you started sharing these stories, because I felt when you shared the challenges with your dad,
Yeah.
with embarrassment and pain and, everything that you were experiencing during that. But guess what? At the same time, look what else you're choosing to notice and remember,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Well, because I'm remembering that through the pain, it was because God raised up friends to me that helped me make it through that, and I chose to do something different. I've shared this story a lot, and it's in my film, so spoiler, it's in the
Yeah,
film
here's your preview.
for such a time
But
as
still
this.
watch the movie when you get it.
But and Rochelle Knight, and I can't remember what her last name is now, but Rochelle, if you're out there watching this is for you. I was 14. I was asked to serve as part of the student body, a representative to the student council for our class. And I was asked to type up an agenda. The student body president asked me to type up the agenda for the next student body meeting where they were going to be meeting with all the representatives and everything. And so I typed it up, and that was in the days where you type it up on a typewriter and then take it to a Xerox and copy it, rolling it out and everything. And so I got it all done, had it all laid out on the desks, and I'm in the room. There was nobody else there. It was just me. And then my friend Rochelle Knight came walking in. She was a cheerleader, and she was in her cheerleader's uniform for that day. I don't remember what was going on, but I remember her walking in her cheerleader outfit, and she kind of bounced in because she was all bubbly, and she always had a lot of energy, and she was just a sweetheart. And she comes in and says hi, and then she picked up one of the agendas, and she said to me, she's looking at it for a second, then she said to me in a very matter-of-fact way, Did you know you misspelled the word miscellaneous? How I responded to her tells you exactly how I felt about me. At the time, I responded and I said, oh, yeah, I did. I guess you think I'm pretty stupid, huh? She didn't miss a beat, Randy. It's been 40 years, 41 years, maybe 42 years since that happened. And I've never forgotten her response. Without missing a beat, she responded back, oh, no, I don't. I think you're pretty neat. That experience has carried me for a long, long time because being the macho teenager that I was, macho boy, I was going to cry, and I was not going to cry in front of her. So I said, I got to go to the bathroom. I walked to the door. I looked both ways in the hall. There's nobody coming. And I sprinted. I sprinted down the hall, turned the corner, went into the boys' bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and just broke down crying. And the feeling that came into my heart at the time was, somebody sees me. Somebody sees me. Somebody thinks I'm neat. I had no idea how I desperately needed to hear those words at that time, because that was part of what saved me, because I had a lot of dark thoughts in my head, and then some people are going to think this is silly or crazy or whatever, but I know it was real because I heard a voice in my own mind, and I know where it came from. It just said, I think you're pretty neat too. And I felt it all the way through my body, from the top of my head down to my soles of my feet. I knew that somebody was aware of me, that he was aware of me, that God knew who I was. And that experience keeps me going. It still keeps me going, along with a whole bunch of others.
Yeah. Well, and imagine this, bless your heart in your cute cheerleader outfit, changing somebody's life and probably had no clue.
Oh, we ate
Right.
dinner with, I ate dinner with her and her husband. We went to their house in Colorado, I don't know, 15, 20 years later.
Yeah.
And I asked her about this. She said, Randy, I don't know what you're talking about. So
But she was just kind. She just was.
she
So
was.
imagine that. So this is
Yeah.
a moment that to one person, simply being kind seemed like
Yeah.
almost nothing. Right. And then, but it was everything.
It made a huge difference. And you think about that. That's another thing I talk about. When I share that story, I invite people to stop and think about how your words can impact somebody. And it was a simple thing. It was not a big act on her part. It was not a big deal. She didn't remember it. But those words pierced my soul. They pierced me all the way to the heart. We're here. I think I'm a huge, huge BYU fan. And I love Coach Kalani Sitake. I've never met him. Don't know him personally. But he's one of my heroes, and here's why. Kalani Sitake, he's 9 years old, and he doesn't feel good about himself. He's wasn't happy. Life was not good and stuff like. But he was a big BYU football fan. He loved BYU football. Happened to be, I believe it was 1984 when they won the national championship, and the BYU football team came to the elementary school where he was going to school, and they were having this, discussion with everybody, and there was an activity, and he was just sitting off to the side. And, one of the football players turned to him and, motioned to him. Says, come on, come out, And he made sure he was talking to me. He's like, yeah, he's talking to me. And he's like, he's shaking his head. No, I'm not coming out there. He wouldn't go. So the football player came over to him. And it just happened to be his favorite football player on the entire team. Favorite football player. And I'll give the name here in just a minute, but his favorite football player. And he sat down and he talked with him for a minute and got to know him a little bit. And then he reached down, he did something, and Kalani said he did something that I will never forget. He gave me a hug and he whispered in my ear, said, God loves you and everything is going to be okay. And he walked away. And Kalani then went on to describe how that experience totally impacted him. That small moment. Who was that football player? It was Vaisa Kahima. And I'm sure your audience, a lot of them have heard that story, but it was It was powerful. And that story resonated with me because I could think about what he calls I'm trying to remember how he put it, a monument moment, something that's like that, as or a milestone moment. It was a milestone in his life. He had his milestone moment there, and I couldn't help but thinking of my milestone moment with Rochelle. And he talks about other milestone moments, but I think about him, and I think about so many other good people I know who are so willing to give kindness and to promote kindness. And going back to not, and yes, I am. I mean, I will say transparency. I'm a total diehard BYU fan. No offense to any University of Utah fans, because I cheer for University of Utah as well. But I went to BYU. I grew up a BYU fan, and I bring up one other thing. BYU, when they go to away games, they do a tailgate. And here's a perfect example of the power of kindness to transform hearts. They're getting ready to go to TCU, which was, that was a tough game. But they were going there, and the week before they're going, apparently TCU had what's called Hell Week to stir up, the feelings against the team, whoever's coming in. Well, at the beginning of the week, somewhere a guy that's an influencer, a BYU guy that's an influencer, got wind of the story of the man who works for TCU, whose wife had just had surgery, who had just created a GoFundMe to try to help pay for the expenses. So he put it out there, says, "Hey, Cougar Nation, let's show our Texas Tech brothers and sisters some love. Let's help them raise some funds for this GoFundMe campaign." Within like 2 days, his goal was to raise $25,000. I don't know how much he raised, but overall, I know it went up over $100,000. Within 2 days, it was up to 60-something thousand dollars. But it's not the amount of, the amount of money was great, but what happened as a result? I read all these responses on social media from Texas Tech fans. Well, there goes Hell Week. Can't be mean to people who are giving us so much love. Guess we're done with that for this week. Think about that. That love totally transformed attitudes. We could call it the Love and Respect Week. That's, I think, one of the other now it's going to have to be Love and Respect Week. But think about that's the power that love has to change lives. That's the power that touched my heart. That's the power that's touched your heart. Our hearts have been touched as we've been sitting here talking. Or maybe it's just been me talking most of the time. But no, because of the dialogue that we've had.
Well, and it's beautiful. And Randy, so what invitation do you have for our listeners right now? What's one thing that they can do?
Go look in the mirror tonight or today and tell yourself, "I love you." And name 3 reasons why you love yourself. My friend Jairus Tucker, shout out to you, Jairus, talks about how he does that every day. And I've started doing it, and it makes a difference. Because it makes me focus on, what I love about myself, and there's nothing wrong with telling yourself why you love yourself. And there's all kinds of good things for doing that. So go look in the mirror, tell yourself 3 reasons why you love yourself. That's my invitation. And then go out and tell somebody you care about 3 reasons why you care about them.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that challenge, and I can't wait to hear what happens when other people take that challenge. So, Randy, thank you so much.
Thank
Route
you, Rick.
2 on the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. I'm so excited for all of the kindness initiatives that Captain Kindman, the superheroes, got out there. So you can look them up. We'll put links in the description below. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me.